Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology, and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. So we're back after a couple of weeks off. Always good, but I think we're sort of, delved straight into winter now, coming back for what is a milestone episode for us, our 250th episode of SciTech Culture. And I think what it effectively highlights, I think when we discussed about setting up the show this way, is that we weren't going to run out of topics to cover, and we seem to be going all right on that. In that department anyway.
We're lucky we live in a world, Ben, where there's always a topic to cover.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess with all of that in mind, we're going to be talking about a topic today that sort of intersects technology and culture quite effectively, or a couple of bits and pieces here. And we're going to start with Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter, or obviously it's going to take him a while before he actually owns it because of all the regulatory stuff he has to go through. But obviously this actually generated a lot of headlines, and Elon, anything from it's the end of Twitter to Elon is going to save Twitter, and the public square mentality of free speech or whatever. As a headline thing, I don't think it's going to do either of those things, and I'm just kind of disturbed about where potentially it could go, because regardless of any nobility behind Elon's intentions relating to Twitter, when it's in one person's hands like that and they can just unilaterally go in and do whatever they want, especially if it's something that he doesn't like that he's seeing on Twitter, maybe that's against him or doesn't suit his interests. I just don't see how you can square that with the idea that, as much as he might want to think that he's going to turn it into a genuine public square where people can say what they need to say, I just don't see how it's going to work in practice. But I could be wrong. We'll have to just see how it works.
Well, yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. I mean, everyone thinks of Elon as either A, a genius, or B, a billionaire, or a bit of A and a bit of B. But C, he's actually like probably one of the greatest influencers out there as well. And we've seen him use Twitter to make money and to spruik things and to make things happen that he wants to happen. And look, I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but I think everyone's familiar with what he's done with Dogecoin and what he's done with Tesla and the sorts of things that he's said on Twitter that have basically benefited him quite a bit financially. And I think if there's anything about Elon, I'm sure he will change Twitter, but I can't see any reason for him to become involved in Twitter unless he thought it was going to make him money.
Yeah, absolutely, and by extension, serving his interests as well. The thing that kind of stuck out to me was comments that he was making about how the importance of the First Amendment in America and the free speech and whatever, and it kind of read to me like someone who pulled out the Idiot's Guide to the Constitution and read the top bylines and thinks he's an expert on free speech, because it's not. But I don't know if he fully appreciates the depth of and complexity of how that would work. But then there's also the added complexity is that Twitter is an international company and different countries handle this differently. And does he really understand what he would like? It's all well and good, even if he manages to master, US usage. What's he going to do with the rest of the world, where you get such a disparate, implementation of the way speech works on a platform like that?
Yeah, well, look, I think if you want to unpack this, you have to start probably at what we've seen him do generally, not just on Twitter, but his tweets themselves are very interesting. But he's also exhibited some quite peculiar behaviours at times on Twitter, which he's put down to, medication and other factors. And I think dealing with Elon, you are certainly dealing with somebody who is in a world of their own. And very often the most intelligent people bend the world, a bit of the Steve Jobs reality distortion effect, and the world becomes relative to them rather than they have a relative place in the world. And I think Elon, for him, whether it's SpaceX, whether it's Tesla, whether it's Twitter, the world works towards those touch points for him, and he influences the world through whatever means he has. And he's certainly shown that the power of his speech, when issued freely, creates realities that he wants to see come true. And I don't know we've ever seen this before in the history of the world. I mean, this is somebody who's really grasped media, not just to create an image for themselves, but actually create them as a tool for them to, create outcomes that they want to happen across the world. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Absolutely. Another aspect to this that I thought was interesting too was it ultimately had to go down a polarized route. So you're going to have, one side, saying that this is like a disaster, the rich elitist billionaire taking over a platform, and, it's another aspect of control for someone who's got the means to bring that under his control. And then on the other side, you've got he's going to save free speech and is like a, sort of like a darling of, people that think that they're under attack or being shut down unfairly without understanding that, maybe part of what they're saying is the reason why they got shut down in the first place. But it's like, and we'll talk about this more broadly as we go along with the rest of what we're going to talk about today, but it makes it impossible to really look at it clearly when there's that much noise going on around that as well, with people taking sides and sort of firming an opinion almost immediately, like a reactive opinion as opposed to an informed opinion of what's actually going on.
That's right. And I think what's interesting is as you point out, there's a polarizing, Elon Musk is a polarizing character, and so people assume, I guess, a position based around Elon Musk, but the actual issues around Twitter and social media generally are not really whether it's Musk or Zuckerberg or, someone else. The issues are actually far greater than that. And to personalize, say what Twitter might become under Musk, actually is really, it ignores the much greater and deeper, I think, issue of social media and what social media has become over the last 5 years. It's become polarized, and on the one hand it's quite clearly becoming a tool for certain voices to dominate and influence. And at the other extreme of that as well, you're also getting a lot of, really undesirable, thoughts, or I don't know, streams of vitriol, which aren't helpful to anything. And probably both ends of the spectrum need to be censored, but I don't even see too much in the middle that's worth keeping either.
Well, the other thing too with the whole free speech concept is that I guess free speech advocates would say that if there's something not particularly nice being said, then the way to combat that is to provide provide the rebuttal to that speech, and that should win out. I don't know if that really works in a social media environment where social media effectively promotes extreme opinions at the expense of moderate opinions, and that's where it all falls over.
Well, I completely agree with you on that, and I think what's interesting is certainly out of 2016, 2017 and the rise of Trump, everyone went hard on the fact checking, but 5 years on, I think we can look back and basically people don't really care about facts. What we're seeing on social media is people just quite simply choose to believe what they want to believe, irrespective of facts on either side.
Absolutely. All right, we'll take a little slight detour, although it kind of feeds into the whole social discourse thing, which we'll wrap up at the end of the episode. But we'll discuss the Dave Chappelle incident where he was tackled on stage by someone who was clearly, not all there, and it was quite a shocking incident, etc. But nothing. Thankfully, Chappelle came out of it okay. But I think I'm sort of drawing a line here. Not the two incidents are not comparable in the sense of like the content or the meaning behind it. In the sense, you've got just a couple of weeks ago with the Will Smith Chris Rock slap, and now there's this like disturbing sort of I don't know what you call festering of something that could potentially become quite ugly, in the sense that if you're gonna, it's no one gonna be able to go on stage, do their performance or whatever it is, all these things that we like and have come accustomed to as part of what we do. Are they not going to be able to get up without concern that somebody will do something like this, which is a lot of the commentary I've been seeing coming out, especially after the Chappelle incident, that it's one thing if a comedian gets, says something and you get offended, but it's another thing if a comedian says something and then you decide to take it upon yourself to jump up on stage and whack them or do something worse. Now, I also want to just mention that that's not necessarily an accurate description of what happened in the Chappelle incident, but I feel like there's a corollary when people see these things on and they get blasted, around the world instantly on any screen you want to watch it on, that it's quite easy for someone to interpret it that way, in terms of being able to see that it could go down that path, I guess.
Yeah, well, look, I think it's just an extension of cancel culture, to be honest. People feel now that if you offend or if you say things that upset people, I'm not even talking about the majority anymore, just a group of people, we've crossed the line already via social media, as you point out, to vitriol or exclusion of people who we feel say things that aren't representative of our society. And quite naturally, I think within that group of people, you have an extreme edge, and some people are willing to use violence and justify it by any means. And you're right, there's no comparison between the two events, but they do underline the fact that there's an element out there where people are saying, well, my emotions might have got the better of me, but hey, like it was so offensive, I lost my mind. And that too is very dangerous ground, I think. I guess it's one thing when it's just words on a screen and hate on a screen in text. That's one thing, but when people take it even a step further, that's a whole new space.
Absolutely. I guess, like, sort of bringing all of everything we just discussed together, I think it goes to the whole concept of what discourse is going to be going forward. I feel like we haven't gone down a route that's been particularly encouraging in the last 5 years in particular, but obviously probably in the probably the early 2010s roughly is probably when it really started to go off the rails. And it seems to me that it's only going to continue to go down this path even more. And I'm not entirely convinced. I think we talked about in the past about an event or something that would, like the equivalent of maybe a nuclear weapon style event going off that would shake everyone to their core, and everyone will just unilaterally decide that no, we better shape up and do something about this. I feel like things have gotten so defragmented in the discourse that just you could have the worst thing and it still might not galvanize enough to put, it's kind of like you can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again with this, in a way. And maybe I don't have the imagination or the foresight to see a solution. There may be something that we've never thought of that might actually galvanize this to sort of clear it up as a cultural thing, but I'm just not seeing it as we're going forward.
I think as long as there are groups, and some of them are very legitimate and very well-meaning groups as well, but as long as any group feels that they are represented on social media and they feel that they're achieving a cause on social media, and they think that they're being heard and they think they're doing something meaningful, as long as that's the paradigm that people are playing to, then we won't see any improvement. In fact, things will just get worse. The reality is that whatever your cause is, if you can't go out and take reasonable, rational, and constructive measures to make the world a better place around your cause, then all you have left is vitriol and hate, and that's just unacceptable.
Well, I guess we're just going to have to wait for Elon to save us then, aren't we?
Well, I'm starting to think if anyone can, he can. Otherwise, we'll just jump on one of his rockets and head to Mars.
Yeah, sounds like an alternative solution. All right, Steve, we might wrap it up there. It'll be interesting. I guess there's still a long way to go before, I guess, Elon formally has it in his hands, I guess, with the whole process. But it'll be interesting to see how Twitter will change. And I guess, the continuing watching of how this whole thing will go in terms of discourse and culture and all that sort of stuff.
Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. All right. So thanks again for watching this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. You can catch more of our episodes and other content that we produce at SciTechCulture.com. You can subscribe to our YouTube and Vimeo channels there and our website there, and we greatly appreciate it when you check it out. All right. So that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.